I'm going to teach you about 5 different surface decoration techniques that you can do at home with the tools that you have in the bag. So surface decoration techniques are ways that you can create designs and patterns and textures on your ceramic projects to enhance them and make them a little bit more designed and give it some creativity. The first one is called impressing or stamping. We did make a stamp at the beginning of the semester, and stamping is when you use a tool or a stamp to make an impression in the clay. This has to be done in the wet stage. So your clay is wet, you can see him having a stamp right here, and you just press the stamp into the wet clay and it makes an impression. This is a very easy technique to do, so on a difficulty level from 1 to 5, this is a difficulty level 1. The next technique is called applique. Applique is when you apply a design that's made from another piece of clay and you add it by scoring and slipping or marrying it in. This can be done in the leather hard stage or it can be done in the wet stage. You can see here that these individual pieces of clay, these little pads of clay, these little coils of clay, are separate pieces that were added onto a tile. So it's very three-dimensional. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is about a difficulty level 3. The next technique is called incising or carving. Carving is when you're going to use a small loop tool to carve and remove a design in your clay. You can see that they made a pot here, and then they used a small loop tool to carve in these lines like that go vertical. This needs to be done in the leather hard stage. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is about a difficulty level 2. Let's take a further look at some carving done by a different artist into leather hard clay. You can see the leather hard clay is about half wet, half dry. That's what leather hard is. So the pot holds its shape. It's very easy to carve into. They have a small metal loop tool that they're using to carve into their pot. It's a great way to draw into clay if you want to add specific designs. The next technique is called piercing. Piercing is when you actually put a hole into the clay and pierce through it, just like piercing your ears. You're going to be using an X-Acto knife or a kitchen knife, like a paring knife, to actually cut out shapes from the clay. The shapes need to be cut out in the leather hard stage. So you can see this bowl was made, and then when the bowl was leather hard, they took a knife or an X-Acto knife and drew and cut out these shapes and removed the clay, so it leaves an empty hole. Obviously the top part of this bowl is not going to be functional to hold water, it is purely decorative. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is about a difficulty level 4. This is a much more intricate version of piercing. Let's take a look at an artist doing this particular technique. To be careful not to break the bowl while you're doing this technique, do you see how he's got his hand behind the bowl supporting it? Because if you push too hard, since this is very thin, you might break the edge of the bowl. So it's really important that you're supporting the other side as you're pushing on this side. This is an X-Acto knife that he's got. He's making very careful lines and then pushing it out to remove it. The main issue you run into here, especially when cutting out shapes that closely together, is that you might break one of these right here. If anything's going to break, it's going to be that thin little line right there. Another thing that you can do at home to enhance the surface design of your projects is called thick oozy slip. So you can make your own slip at home, which you have before. To make this kind of slip that you can run your fingers through or run a kidney through or all kinds of tools through, the best way to do that is to put it in a blender and blend it with water. So what I do is I start with maybe a half a cup of water and I add just a small thumb-sized chunk of clay to it and blend it up. And then I keep adding more clay until it gets to the right consistency. The consistency that I like for something like this is maybe a ranch dressing type of thickness. So when this pot was leather hard and when this tile was leather hard, the artist applied thick slip to the surface And you can manipulate this thick slip just like you would with cake icing or frosting. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is about a difficulty level 3. This is one of Stephen Hill's pottery pieces, and he's kind of famous for his thick oozy slip, and he uses it to cascade and all of the glazes that he layers on there. Here is him using thick slip on a porcelain piece and then manipulating it with a rib on the potter's wheel.